What's going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a weekly live stream where we talk about news, current events, uh, politics, and of course our movie review. With me as ever is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on?
A lot of we got some things to talk about. Not least of which is our movie review. And to remind you, this month's theme is black and white through the decade, and today we'll be reviewing a Martin Scorsese, masterwork in Raging Bull from 1980, starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Kathy Mortimer, or Moriarty, I should say.
Yeah.
Frank Vincent.
It's a star-studded cast. It's got all the even though some of them are all like little cameos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Great movie. I would say it's his second best film. I know how much of a struggle it was, and he was not the driving force behind that movie. That was De Niro made that movie happen.
Mm.
He kept kind of. If you will, kind of wearing them down with it, punching them down, to get them to make the damn movie.
Right, they got him down, Ray. They got him down.
Yeah, never got me down, Ray.
Well, in this case, he did get them down.
Yeah, got you down, Marty. Finally got you down.
Yeah, finally got you down, Ray.
But yeah, no, it's this is really just. Man, I have a hard time deciding whether I like this movie more or if I like Rocky more when it comes to boxing films.
I don't know. I give the slight edge to Raging Bull, just because of like a little bit more. It's a little bit more artfully done.
That like I said.
As universal as a story as Rocky is, it's just Raging Bull just kind of like through the language of visual communication just is telling a more interesting story.
Like I said, you catch me on one day, I might say one movie over the other, but damn, like it's a difficult choice, and this is, I appreciate Scorsese's non-gangster films because I feel like that's really that's where he shines the best, like Goodfellas, Mean Streets, The Irishman, all of those are great movies that will always be awesome. And I feel like he gets the best out of his actors in those films. But when he tries to go somewhere where he's not in a different vein, like Raging Bull, Silence, we did Last Temptation of Christ. I feel like we see him go to a different gear and try something different, and I always appreciate that from Scorsese because he never approaches something like, oh well, he's not laughing at like doing something different. Like he does take it very, very seriously, and maybe the film doesn't do all that well, or it doesn't necessarily reach the audience that he had hoped. But I wouldn't consider them bad movies. And Raging Bull, like, I think he hit a home run.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you have all that to look forward to, coming, down the line.
Yeah.
But
this is your choice this week, so yeah, I'm good choice.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that, again, kind of like it goes into the that term we coined, cinematic archaeology. It's like I've seen the movie without actually seeing the movie.
Oh yeah.
And so there's always like all the like the homages and like the kind of like the rip-offs or the parodies and like, so I know like I've seen the movie, but without actually having seen the movie. But
Yeah, Simpsons parodies this movie like when Homer becomes a prize fighter.
mm-hmm. Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
it just because that whole like segment of like it switches to the black and white and has kind of that orchestral feel to it,
mm-hmm.
which is that's Raging Bull right there.
Exactly. So yeah. Uh, yeah. I'm just sorry, folks. It's just I'm very out of it right now.
Andy is I can tell he is wilting as we speak. It for those not in the Los Angeles area, it is very hot out here. It is 110. I would think it was like 110 degrees today, and I like the heat, but that's just fucking way too hot.
Yeah, it's just it's way too hot, and like the last couple of weeks there's like some humidity mixed in with the heat due to the effects of some like tropical or like hurricanes or like some tropical storms like kind of in like the Baja region. Um,
Yeah, it's just
so it's I mean Southern California is known for like their hot summers and everything, but just the humidity is like just that's like one of the reasons why I couldn't live in Florida, because of the humidity.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I remember last year, like literally last year, I was at a friend's wedding and it was in Temecula, here in Southern California. It's what is it from LA? It's about let's say 50 miles from LA proper.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it was a dry heat though, and here in the San Fernando Valley where we live, it was kind of like that muggy kind of heat. But when I got when I was in Temecula and I felt like that familiar dry Southern California like desert like heat, I was like, oh man, I can see myself retiring out here, potentially, if it stays
Yeah,
like this.
it's not a bad place to be. But yeah, you came over yesterday, and yeah, I was trying to keep you somewhat kind of almost fanning you off because I was like you looked like you were melting into the couch. It was like you looked really bad
Yeah,
yesterday.
I just don't. Yeah, me and humidity just don't mix. That's why I've never been. It's not like I go. It's not like I go to Korea very often, but I never want to go to Korea during the summer because I just hear horror stories of the humidity there,
Yeah,
and like
it's
and so like I just don't want to deal. I'll go in the spring. I'll go in the fall, winter, but I'll never go during the summer.
if it's anything like New York's summers, yeah,
Mm.
it's fucking awful.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And you get that like afternoon rain, which is like you get like 5 minutes of relief, and then it just punches you back in like the freaking mouth.
Mm-hmm.
The worst.
Yeah, that's why I was worried when I went over to Memphis. That's what I was worried about for my cousin's
Mm.
graduation. Is that it's going to be very humid, but you know, even though I could feel the humidity, my cousin was telling me that we came at a good time because like usually it would be almost like as if you were trying to breathe water. It's like that's how like moist the air would get, and so I'm glad we dodged the bullet on that.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I like I said, I understand it. It's rough. Yeah, and like because even like when I'm working, like even in the mornings, as early as I work, it's
Mm-hmm.
still just like it's the inside the building. It's it's already like I'm kind of sweating already because I'm working pretty hard. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not too bad in there. I walk outside and it's just like it's like a punches you. It's like fuck. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's not supposed to be this hot.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to because I mean we're already believe it or not we're already in August, so
Well, it's the
um,
dog days of summer. It's
yeah, I mean Yeah, I know we're known for our Indian summers here, but any time, just even if we're just like a few few months into autumn, it's a blessing because then that the winter's gonna come in soon. And
Yeah.
hopefully, we will be getting some rain this year because I know last year was a La Nina year,
Yeah.
so yeah, so hopefully that trend doesn't linger, and we're able, like, even and and I'm not necessarily asking for an El Nino, but La Nina's a bitch, and it's time for her to go.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, it's weird because I'm like, I sweat so much, but I love layers. Especially when it's like cold. When it gets cold, I like layering. You know.
You and my wife are kind of the same way in that weird vein. Like you guys, like I want to like wear all like this. On me, I'm fine. Like like I said, maybe like give me like 20 less degrees. Give me like 90 degrees, little bit of a breeze.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect for me. That's and yeah, I'll wear so kind of some lighter clothing. Have a few cold drinks. I am perfect.
Well, yeah. No. I'm talking about like colder weather. And
Yeah.
again, I know I'm not, complicated, but I am complex. And so
That is true.
so I do enjoy layers. Uh, but when it's like summer, yeah, I wanted a very frosty, 60 degrees, and everywhere I go, and and I want to wear as like as minimal what like, as breezy as material as possible.
Maybe I'll have to send you to like Iceland or something.
Maybe, yeah, I wouldn't mind, during the summers, I wouldn't mind living in Alaska.
Yeah, you get like nearly 24 hours of sunlight and mild temperatures.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for, dude. I'll just get blackout curtains. It's all good. I'll make it work.
Yeah, but where do you want to start? What story do you want to start with?
Well, let's honor the man, and let's talk about Vin Scully.
Yeah, it's funny. I as soon as we finished our broadcast last week, that's I kind of got all the news that Vin Scully had passed away. For
Mm-hmm.
those of you who are not baseball fans or are not in like Los Angeles, Vin Scully was the longtime uh, uh, announcer for the Dodgers, and so obviously his main sport was baseball, but he did a lot of other sports too. Like he did like a lot of, I think he worked with like NBC, so like he did like a lot of the football, he did golf, he did a lot of different things, and he was just one of Los Angeles was lucky. We had three of the greatest announcers for three of the major sports. We had Vin Scully for baseball for the Dodgers. We had Chick Hearn for the Lakers, and God, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. He's still alive, I think. He was the announcer for the Los Angeles Kings, and it's they're all retired. Well, Chick Hearn and Vince Scully have now passed away. I believe the Kings former announcer is still alive, but he's retired. And it's just kind of, and I'm just thinking about like sports announcing in general. A lot of the greats are gone. Not that there isn't good announcing today, but it's not the same. There's something about like listening to a Vin Scully broadcast where it's like you feel like you're there at the park. Like you feel like he's talking. His philosophy was like, the reason why I do these broadcasts by myself is because I don't want it to be a conversation with people. I want to be talking to I want the fans to be like I'm talking to them, and that's exactly how it felt
Right.
like.
Right. No, because like when you watch, there's some like apparently basketball, in terms of and like like post the Kobe, or even sometimes during, but post like the Kobe era, like the Lakers, like sometimes like the broadcasters, they'll like start going into like a side conversation and just like not be talking about the game at all.
Ah,
And
yeah.
it's like it'll be tangentially about the game, because maybe they'll talk about a player, but then they'll go like a little bit off track and like more like into like maybe like something that's going to be off the court, like in the players' lives or something. But just like or then sometimes they'll just be like ragging on the player during the game, and it's like, guys, you're here for a purpose, and that purpose is to call this game, and as colorful and enjoyable sometimes as it can be to like rag on a player or discuss a player and like something that's happening in like their lives outside the court. It's like just call the game.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not that like that doesn't. Basketball moves at a quicker pace than like baseball, right?
Mhm.
But baseball, the reason why like a Vin Scully broadcast, did he provide us like stories about like his tangents were about the past and like talking about like a certain player, and it's like, oh, such and such player, like he's on his way, like they're he's going to be coming up on this record, or we're going to be talking about like there's this similar situation back in like 1965 with the Dodgers, and it's and like that was also the one thing about Vin Scully, because he was an institution. He's been
Right,
around
yeah,
with
he moved with the Dodgers from
from
Brooklyn to Los
Los
Angeles.
Angeles.
And so, yeah, like as much as like Tommy Lasorda or who's that guy? They made a movie out of it.
Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson or Fernando Valenzuela, or even now contemporarily, maybe like even Clayton Kershaw. Like this guy is synonymous with Dodgers. You say Vin Scully, you automatically think of Dodgers.
It's like you don't have to say anything else here.
Mm-hmm.
We all know. Oh, Vin Scully, the Dodgers. Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
right, and Vin Scully, he harkens back to a simpler time, a quainter time, and with his north mid Atlantic accent, which is because the quality of the audio equipment wasn't so great, so you really had to like enunciate, and that's why you get like the kind of kind of almost comforting, sound of like Vince Scully, calling the game, like you're watching Dodger baseball, and it's just like it's just it's
and yeah, it's just it's when he retired, I was like, obviously, because he had been around since 1950, and he was a broadcaster for the Dodgers for almost 60 years. I mean, that's insane.
right. I mean, just
And
like who's that guy for the Cubs?
Harry Carey.
Yeah, Harry Carey.
Yeah, he was another like but here he ended up becoming more synonymous with the Cubs, but he had done like a Cardinals broadcast for a long time too before
Mm-hmm.
he ended up moving over to the Chicago broadcast.
Right.
Vin Scully was never part of another team's broadcast. Like he didn't move over from like the Philadelphia
Right, but
Phillies.
it just goes to show you like how powerful like these guys could end up being. I mean, yeah, Harry Carey came from another, but again, Vin Scully was an institution unto himself.
Yeah.
So
Actually, the current Cubs announcer is he does something really interesting. I'm blanking on his name right now, but what he does, because he wants to preserve the great calls of these classic announcers, as far as it goes with baseball. And so he organizes these albums, just the great calls, and he gives the history behind like the call, what was going on, and then is allowing uh then he brings in that announcer's like call, based off what was going on. And the great, I'm sure he's going to do one on Vin Scully. It's going to happen, but he's done it on the great St. Louis broadcaster Jack Buck. um Harry Carey is one that he's done. I think he's done like a whole bunch, and it's just like, man, that's someone who is, he's a great broadcaster by himself, like the current Cubs announcer, but he is respecting the past and kind of trying to preserve that history. Um, and I was just thinking like in announcing in general, but like even like the NASCAR broadcasts, although they're not bad nowadays. Like I'm not bothered by them, but they're not the same thing like growing up like back in my time. And we don't have the same storied history as like baseball or basketball. But even like some of those legends are passing away. Like on the radio broadcast, Barney Hall. He's been dead for a few years now, unfortunately. But he was one of those guys you knew, like that was like the comforting voice for NASCAR fans, listening to MRN and to Barney Hall's broadcast. You
Yeah, or
have
like Chick Hearn for the Lakers.
yeah.
There's like no one who like who who comes close to like replacing Chick Hearn with like all his like he like a lot of like the moves and stuff that we associate basketball moves like that's the things that he came up with, like the finger
Yeah.
roll or the sky hook or just a lot of the terminology for shots and things like that. It's because Chick Hearn came up with them like on the fly, and now they're just like synonymous.
Yeah, Vin Scully does the same, kind of the same thing. Oh, it's a can of corn. It's which is a high pop up fly ball. It's just like these little like anachronisms. It's like, man, we just don't quite. We don't have that personality when it comes to broadcasting anymore. They're not bad. I'm not saying that they're bad. They're not bad. But they're not. They're not. It's not the same. And
Right.
and I don't think that they're trying to be the same, but it will never recapture that flavor again. I look at like I used to, when I was growing up, watching like NASCAR too, like the ESPN broadcasts. You had some of like the real great personalities in the sport. Like the play-by-play guy was a guy by the name of Bob Jenkins. He's now passed away. You had the color commentator, which was Benny Parsons, who is also unfortunately passed away. Benny was just, those two together were so great. And then you also had kind of the strategy guy, which was Ned Jarrett, who was Benny and Ned. They were drivers themselves, but they went into the booth after they retired, and the three of those guys together made these amazing broadcasts. Like even like the guy who won the race was kind of just blowing. The guy was blowing. They were blowing him out. Like they would make the race exciting at the same time. They would keep you updated like with what's going on. How is this affecting like the point standings? Like what are the key storylines? And they would have stuff where like they're not breaking off on tangents, but like they were like, hey, these are going to be the storylines that we're going to be checking out throughout the race. Because they're working they're working through the practice and the qualifying, and they're talking about all the different drivers and like what's going on, like what are the key storylines, and they'll keep you updated. They'll tell you about the race, but they're also keeping you updated on these storylines. Oh, yeah, it's the points leader. He dropped out at like lap 40, like but he through a crash, but now he's back, and like how is that affecting the points?
Right.
And it was exciting.
Yeah,
And
it's the difference between that episode of The Simpsons, where they start off with like the soccer game, and it's the difference between like Ken Brockman calling the game, and then like the Spanish speaker announcers, because the Ken Brockman's like very kind of like you know. He's very boring. He's like very like dry, just calling it as it is. Like
back to center.
I know it's like center passes it to wing, wing passes it to center, center holds it, holds it, holds, and then and it switches over to like this, the Spanish speaker, and it's just like announcer, and he's like, it's like center passes to wing, wing passes to center, center holds it, holds it, holds it. It's just
Oh it's exactly like that. Where it's like even though like, the race or the game, like it's a blowout or whatever, but you can but the right guy can make it exciting, and like you're still like, you know what, the race wasn't good, but fuck, I had a great time. And the other thing that we another institution for the Dodgers is their Spanish language announcer is going to be retiring after. I think he's retiring after the end of this year. I could be wrong on that. Jaime Harin, he hasn't been around as long as Vin, but close enough. I mean, like he came on not very long after Vin Scully started with the Dodgers. I think he came on once they moved to Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been around since they moved to Chavez Ravine. And that, like that, and for the Spanish language broadcast, for the people that listen to that, like they're losing someone too. Not that they have Fernando Valenzuela who's on the broadcast, and he does a good job. But losing Jaime Harin is a huge fucking deal.
Oh, talk about losing institutions, but I mean, we're not losing it. We're not, but what is it? Farmer John, who used to be the exclusive provider for Dodger dogs.
It's not the same. It's not the same hot dog.
It's not the same. It's gonna forever they've been working out of the processing plant or whatever out in Vernon here in Los Angeles, just south of downtown. It's like it's part of like unincorporated Los Angeles. But because of kind of how things have been going the last couple of years, Farmer John has been forced to close that processing plant, and so
that was a huge loss because they were the sole hot dog for Dodger Stadium, and they sell like 1 billion hot dogs a year just from that one location. And now when I eat a hot dog, I normally, for myself, I'm a Nathan's guy. I like Nathan's hot dogs. I think they're the best. But when I go to Dodger Stadium, the way that the way that they prepare their Farmer John Dodger dogs, like, because they do a steam, but they also grill it a little bit, so you get a little bit of a crisp, but you get the same flavor as a steam dog.
But then you get the snap of like the casing when you grill it.
It's a weird combo, but it works. And so I always enjoyed the Farmer John. The hot dogs are not bad now, but you can tell the difference. It's not the same hot dog. It's serviceable, but it's not the same. And the fact that like I didn't realize they were closing down that plant, but if you think about it, like in a baseball season, just from Dodger Stadium alone, how many hot dogs do they fucking sell a year? And now they lose that profit.
Right. What is it? I'm sure like if you watch like Food Network or Travel Channel, like they've highlighted this, and and like the Farmer John's like plant that the Dodger dogs used to come from, had like this big mural of like this pasture land, and like all these pigs running around, But yeah, but because of because of the shutdowns and how, the economy and all that stuff, they're forced to the Farmer John's is forced to shut down that processing plant, and so but apparently yeah, the other company is also works out of Vernon as well. So I mean, it's still going to be coming from Vernon, so
Yeah,
it'll still be buoying up like the local economy, but it just won't be Farmer John's anymore.
yeah. But yeah, and football too. Like I think a lot of people. John Madden passed away. I think that was last year that happened. But that's another voice for football that's just gone. You're not going to get that back.
True.
And like I said, I just wanted to remember Vin Scully a little bit. And if you're a sports fan, I encourage you. Go if maybe you're newer to sports. Like you're not. You don't know about some of these like great announcers. I encourage you to go back to like listen to like some of these like just for like the highlights. Go listen to some of the great Vin Scully highlights. Go listen to some of the great like John Madden calls or Chick Hearn, or whoever whatever your favorite sports team is. Like there are that have been around for decades. I encourage you to go back and listen to like the great announcers, from your local sports team, and yeah, I think you'll just to honor them a little bit. And yeah, it's he's Vin Scully. He was 94, or no, was he 90? Yeah, he was 94. So he lived a good life. It's not like he died tragically in like a plane crash or something like that. That he was taken from us too soon.
He didn't get Buddy Holly.
Yeah, it's so we got the full, Vin Scully. Like I felt like when I watched Dodger games, I felt like he had come into my living room and was talking to me about the game and teaching me about baseball, and that's what I appreciate the most. And we'll always remember Vin Scully, and yeah, I just wanted to remember him just a little bit since we didn't get a chance to last Tuesday when it happened.
Comment from Dark Avenger. Handsome fellas, what's up? What's up? What's up, Dark Avenger? For those of you who may not know, Dark Avenger is our buddy David Blake. He's been on the stream a few times.
Yeah, he'll be on for an episode here again pretty soon. So if if you're missing some David Blake, who is a absolute wild man, and I love him to death, he'll be on soon.
Something to look forward to on that.
He's the most unfiltered person I know.
Perhaps, maybe even more than me. I don't know.
Oh yeah, way more than you. I think you sometimes like you do like hold back a little bit. He's just like, fuck it. Yeah. I love him.
I don't know, but I say nigger, so I don't know.
Well, that is true.
I know, I say nigger, so I might have that up on David, but
that might be true.
Yeah, but generally I would concede. Yeah, he is more unfiltered than me.
But why don't we get to your because we have another. Sorry, this is a very Los Angeles heavy episode so far. We're talking about the shitty weather right now. We're talking about the Dodgers and Vin Scully, but we have another local Los Angeles story that that Andy found interesting. So why don't we get into that?
All right. Yeah. But just last week or so, there was an attempted holdup at this liquor store, locally, in the Los Angeles area. It actually took place in a little town called Norco, which is just 50 miles or so southeast of Los Angeles. just about where Corona, California is. And this 80-year-old man who runs this liquor store, he was held up. Um, um, yeah, he was an 80-year-old man, working at this liquor store, and these would be robbers came in, and they actually had the drop on him. Like they came in, like the guy came in with like his with a rifle, like pointed at this man. Craig Cope is his name. Um, but despite having the drop on him, Craig Cope, he was able to, you know, get to a shotgun and chase the burglars away, and even actually getting a shot off, and uh, shooting off the arm of one of the would-be robbers.
Yeah. Oof. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's just one of those feel-good kind of stories.
He's our local Clint Eastwood.
I know, right? Just it's like it's like Gran Torino. It's like, get off my lawn, but it's like, get out of my store.
My lawn, you fucking bastard. It's like.
Yeah, it's the footage of the would-be robbery is kind of funny because like the guy like literally comes in, he has a draw on Craig Cope, but the old man, he's still able to like kind of like maneuver his way to his shotgun, grab it, and get a shot off it with chasing him away. You could hear on the store's what is it surveillance video. It's like, oh, he shot my arm off. He shot my arm off. And then as he's like running to the getaway car, like they almost leave a man behind. Because one of them being somewhat decent, helps the one-armed robbery suspect, into the car, and like the getaway driver almost leaves without him.
Jeez. Oh God, that's awesome. Well, he left the arm behind, probably.
I don't know, because like he said he shot his arm off, but it still looked like it was attached. So it might have been shot, but it's like maybe it was like hanging on by like a sinew or something. But it didn't look like it was like blown off. Again, the resolution quality of the security cameras, wasn't that great. So.
So maybe it wasn't Carl Weathers in Predator, where like the gun is still shooting.
Yeah.
Oh man, but I'm so happy that happened. It's like, honestly, like if you put a gun in someone's face, mm-hmm. and because like you're gonna rob them or whatever, you forfeit your life, you forfeit your limb, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm so happy that this isn't like, tragedy strikes as 80-year-old store, convenience store owner is killed. Mm-hmm. It's a heroic story. The 80-year-old fights back and beats it, kind of, and wins.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Like there is a sad component in that, like after the incident, he did suffer a mild heart attack. But I just saw reports recently, and it shows him like that he has recovered and he's back at work and all that stuff. So
that's like I said. That is good news. Mm-hmm. Great news.
Absolutely.
And
even but
I'm just saying, like, it's, people might look at that as like, think of it as like some sort of like tragedy that's happening. It's like, I look at that as like, this is awesome. Like, this is, I don't see anything bad about this news story. This is good news to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think if politicians were smart, they would definitely try to capitalize on this, and they would they should, if they want to win political brownie points, then they should work to empower like shop owners and stuff like that, and introduce like legislation that if you're a shop owner of like any stripe, a restaurant, a convenience store, a furniture store, and you use deadly force in the prevention of theft or a crime, then you should be completely immune to prosecution.
Well, that's in the Constitution, Andy.
I know, it's crazy, but people are so stupid that they need like bills or whatever uh, to uh, to reinforce constitutional rights. But
Well,
I mean, I meant it more as like for local politicians.
true.
Especially
it's like
especially now, like particularly in LA, like with the rampant crime that's been going on, that's like that's not being addressed.
it's real bad.
If like like a smart politician would come out with like this type of bill, particularly for like again for business owners, and if they particularly maybe a city council member who has ambitions for to be mayor, they should a shop owners defense bill, you know
Yeah,
and so empowered because it's like in a world where in a time where basic laws aren't being enforced, uh, and in a metropolitan area like Los Angeles County, where the average uh, 911 police response time is about 20 minutes pre-pandemic.
so it's 8
I
minutes now.
yeah, I probably doubled that now. Um, it's it go a long way to winning some brownie points with actual stakeholders, business owners,
Yeah.
who actually have something to lose.
Well, that would, like you said, that would require politicians to be smart. They are not.
Yeah.
Right, left, and center. I like I said, I can count on one hand politicians that I think that are smart, and these guys they're not. But yeah, you're right. It's like and to me, it's like, yeah, that's in the freaking Constitution. Like, it's like, well, why are we? The guy's protecting himself from someone that like is showing that he is wanting to hurt them. For to take, I'm trying to take what's yours, whether it be your money or your life or both, and the fact that like there would be any sort of repercussion against that store owner for defending himself and defending his store, that's bullshit.
Well, also it was my kind of sneaky way of kind of introducing the idea of castle doctrine, because I don't think in California there is castle
No, there's
doctrine.
not.
But it makes sense. Like, why would I run away from, robbers, stealing from my own, home? Like, like those states or like those cities that, have like the, like duty to flee, kind of laws. That makes absolutely no sense. Like, why would I run away from people, stealing from my own house? Or like if I'm being chased down by people, like, if someone's like coming and like confronting me, why is it my first duty to like run away? If like especially if they brandish a weapon and like as soon as you brandish a weapon, like that's automatically saying that's automatically a threat. So shouldn't I then be open to brandishing a weapon myself to mitigate that threat? It's like it's the whole thing of the whole like Han shot first thing, and like
Yeah.
it didn't make sense for Lucas to go back in and make it so that Greedo
Fuck
shoots
that
first.
But
It wasn't Disney. Lucas did it himself. This is
yeah,
pre-Disney.
that's what I'm saying. Like that was like, what are you doing, dude?
But
And
it's just
then
like,
you like, there was
but
no.
because it's stupid because Greedo's the one that gets to drop on Han first. He points a gun at him, a blaster, and Greedo is the one to initially make a threat. So if Han shot him afterwards, it's completely justified because Greedo was the one to draw down on Han first. So Han was completely justified in shooting him.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, but but because people are fucking morons, and so they have to show that Han isn't like a bad guy, and if even though Greedo has a gun on Han, but Han shoots him, it's like, oh, it makes him look like he's the bad guy. Oh, Greedo is just this innocent minority who is just protecting himself against like the evil white Han Solo.
Oh, yeah. It's just the fact that like we live in a society where we've made guns and gun owners the boogeyman, essentially. Now, are there people that are because we've talked about like these there's always like this escalation of these quote unquote mass shootings, right? And they're blaming video games, movies. They're
Rap
blaming this
music.
or that. Oh, it's the NRA's fault. If the NRA didn't exist, if guns didn't exist, this wouldn't have happened. It's like, no. There's a failure in something else on that side, but like,
Right. Yeah, because they always point to the tool because it's like, a gun is no more responsible for shooting someone as a hammer is for building a house. The hammer itself didn't build the house. It was the intention of the wielder of that hammer, that built the house.
yeah, if like there was like mass hammer attacks, it's like no one would be like, okay, well those people are psychopaths. It's like the hammer isn't it's the hammer isn't making them do it. The guns aren't making
Right.
them
Or
do
like,
it.
yeah, or like, because they always say, oh, the guns are the problem. Guns are the problem. It's like never in the history of firearms has the firearm itself, independently of any of a human being, gone around and shot people. That's like the argument that the other side is making. It's like, oh, these guns are the problem. It's like, I didn't know that guns were attained sentience and was like going around and shooting people by themselves.
You didn't know that they're like T-1000.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and if it wasn't guns, I mean, look at the UK. They have no private citizen is allowed to have guns, but there's all these knife attacks, and now they're saying, oh, we need common sense knife control, and like like trying to sell chef knives with like blunted ends, so it's like you can't stab anybody, but you can still slice the shit out of somebody.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Canada's like, no, you don't have the right to protect yourself. Are you insane? It's like, well, you know what? So you would rather me just die? Okay, got it.
I know, yeah. That was
It's
like
just like,
that's why that law in New York State got struck down because they're like saying like, oh, well, you have to give us a good reason why you even need a gun if you're gonna conceal carry, and it's just like that's fucking retarded.
yeah,
Because like all it's doing is keeping guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens or like citizens who like actually need it, like like say women who are who have to protect themselves from like deranged ex-boyfriends or husbands.
this has been a long targeted attack that I don't know if this fight will ever end. It probably won't. I don't know if we will end up if we will end up ever losing this fight. It certainly seems like we're very close to it, but They are going to grind away at the Second Amendment until you have no protections for yourself, because the people that run the government nowadays, they hate you. Okay, I'm not saying all of them, but the majority of the government, they hate you. They hate the fact that you have, you're a brain, the fact that you can defend yourself, the fact that you can speak out against the ineptitude of the government, and they want to eliminate everything that your God-given protections, that you deserve. They want to take that away from you, and in a lot of ways, the citizenry, out of fear or just, I don't know. They're just it's gonna go away, and you'll never ever get it back.
Here's where I think it's like the exact opposite is happening. And I think it's to cite cases like the New York thing. And I think Second Amendment is only getting stronger, because you have the Supreme Court, not just like the Supreme Court of New York, New York State, but the federal Supreme Court struck down that law, saying like, no, you can't do that. You can't, no onerous. I know, and I get the irony about them saying like, oh, no onerous restrictions on gun ownership. When they have all these other laws, restricting gun ownership. But like all these other states who are going like, what is it, Montana, I think, has now like just recently passed constitutional carry, and I think some states or some cities in Texas are now allowing for constitutional carry,
as it should be. But
right. But I think, I mean, in California, will there ever be a time in California that there will be constitutional carry? Maybe, but not in the immediate future. But eventually it will happen.
You're hopeful though. That's pretty much what you're saying. You're hopeful.
Well, no, it's just I'm hopeful, yes, but I see the trend. And like all of these onerous like kind of restrictions and laws that they're trying to pass are being struck down, which are getting people to look at gun laws more closely, and like saying, do we really need these particular gun laws, which will then maybe lead to repeals, or the the recognition of the Second Amendment, just generally.
Yeah, it's when it's good that the Supreme Court is actually they are standing up for it. That one, is we've talked about how like the weird like importance we place on the Supreme Court. Well, it is important. Don't get me wrong, but it's like we've almost we've given them way too much power. It's like we're like the fact that like a lot of these like they are a check against the other powers, but like
Right.
it's weird when a whole one of the three powers that are in place, when one of them abdicates their ability to they're not like going after like sole power, they just abdicated power. It's causes crazy shift, and it's really turned people crazy. And that's where like when the Supreme Court gets involved, it does worry me, because the way that we have the way that we operate the court, which is a little weird. It's like as much as we do make fun of Ted Cruz a lot in this thing, but he did actually have a really good, an interesting book talking about. It's called One Vote Away, where he talks, and he's a nerd. He's a Supreme Court nerd. He's
a scholar. He's a scholar.
He has studied the history of the Supreme Court, and like how like a lot of the country has been saved because of because of one vote, essentially, like, and a lot of these like key cases that could have just destroyed the fabric of the country. It's kind of scary a little bit that it's come to that point where it's like it's one person in a lot of ways, and that's that the fact that he's bringing that to light is which is good, but it's also it should scare the shit out of people. It's like the country, because one person voted for or against something, save the country. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah, no. We're constantly belly aching about this. About like the how the House and the Senate have pretty much abdicated their responsibilities and like creating laws, and putting way too much power in the executive, and now like even now with like putting too much power in the judiciary, basically trying to get the what was it 9 unelected people to enforce laws. Um,
And if they don't enforce the laws or not enforce the laws that they're supposed to, then they're gonna riot and go ape shit.
right. I mean, the attempted assassination of Kavanaugh, or even just like the general upheaval during like the whole like Kavanaugh like confirmations. It was like the whole like Me Too wackos, and like for some reason like them like breaking down like putting the crack in the doors to like the Supreme Court isn't the it doesn't qualify as insurrection. The same way as Trump supporters who got riled up and like broke some stuff, but entered the Capitol, but mostly walked around in like straight line, didn't cross velvet ropes. But those guys are terrorists.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we have people that are literally burning down cities and killing people, but it's fine.
All right, it's like, oh, they're boys being boys, terrorists being terrorists.
It's I like to be hopeful. I'm just, man, it's a little. It's maybe not in my lifetime. I'm not saying that it's not. I don't fear for myself in my lifetime per se, as far as like just the country going to complete dog shit. But even like my wife and I, we've talked about this. So it's like she's even like, I want to have kids, but at the same time I don't, because I don't want them to suffer through this crazy bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's a crazy time right now. I fully admit that. But well, I mean, particularly for those who are believers, and I'm talking Christians here. We were given a command. Humanity was given a command, and that was to to multiply.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying that if you are married and don't have kids, then you're going against God or whatever. But that is a commandment, and and I think that every able-bodied Christian should try and fulfill it, whether that it be regular old natural procreation, or it's through adoption. Um, but ultimately, it's not just like the furthering of your line, but it's also the furthering of the faith. Creating more Christians.
The other thing that the other weird thing, because there's been this weird thing that's been kind of going on too, and maybe it's just it's a media thing or whatever. It's a a contrived media story. But like all these people are like, oh, this weird. How they're white people are so worried that they're losing their color and their race, and that the brown and black people are starting to become the majority. It's like, if you really believe that, like if that's something that really worries you, fucking outbreed them, okay? Like that's how you win. and it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Right. But yeah.
But
So, but I think,
I
but I know, like, I understand, like, the fear or whatever. But as parents, you just gonna have, you are just gonna have to take more of responsibility. Like taking more responsibility for, what your kids watch, what your kids intake. And also, like maybe even take responsibility in educating your kids. Um,
But see, here's the thing. It's like I have yet to meet a person. I'm not saying that they're not out there, but I have yet to meet a person that is so concerned. Like, oh my God, that person's black or brown or Asian or yeah, whatever. Like, and it's to me, and so it's like I don't think that exists. But what I am concerned about is the manipulation and like the mindset of people where it's like honestly, like there's people that are not in our country that do believe in the ideals of America. It's like give me those people. I want them. I don't want the people that like have been were born in this country and they hate everything about it and they want to destroy it. It's like if you really hate our country that much, like and like, oh, I hate the Second Amendment, I hate the First Amendment, it's stupid, blah blah blah. It's like there's other countries that you can go to that would be maybe your paradise. Go to Europe, go to South America, go to Asia if that's what you want to do. Go to China if you really like want to have a centralized everything is like centralized government. Um, it's your communist paradise. That's fine. And if American citizens want to go to these places, I'm all for it. That's fine. But I'll take the people that actually want to be here and they don't need a safety net. And they want to work hard and they want to contribute to the society around them. I'm all for that.
right, but it's up to the people who actually like feel the way like we feel, and who want more, who want to take responsibility. It's like it's up to us to we are we are to be the remnant. You know, because God,
Yeah.
God will always, leave. He always creates a remnant for himself. He did it with, he did it with with, with Gideon. He did it with Jesus and the apostles. The 12 apostles. That's a remnant.
Yeah.
So God, God is constantly, uh, creating a remnant for himself. So we as we who we feel like we will be the remnant, the people who like actually give a damn about this country, who actually care about like the values and stuff. It's up to us to uh, propagate it, and like that's like have kids, and teach them, and as they say in the Bible, teach a child, in the way that they should go, and they will not depart. And so
Well, that's why, like, if when the time comes, like we are not. Whenever I have children, we are not sending them to government school. That's for damn sure. We're
there
going
you
to teach
go.
them or
Yeah,
to
because
put them in an actual institution of learning.
exactly. Those people who are advocating for more government control, more, centralized power, is like those are the cowards because they don't want to take the responsibility for themselves. They don't want to take the responsibility of, you know, growing their own food, or they don't want the responsibility of, educating their children, or they don't want the responsibility of paying back their loans. Um, but because freedom isn't freedom from responsibility. Freedom actually requires more responsibility. And so,
Exactly. That's the whole point. And if you can't handle that, there's places that you can go where you can live a very comfortable life where you don't have those same responsibilities.
exactly. And so,
But yeah, it's it that and that local story ended up turning into a like you said a much more interesting discussion, I think.
right. I mean, because, right. Because it wasn't like this old man. Yeah. It wasn't, it wasn't like this old man who, just allowed his store to be robbed or vandalized or whatever. He took the steps because like in the pack in like the story, the little news bite that I saw, like he took the steps and he installed security cameras, and I'm sure like he's called the police and let them know like this is happening to him, but it's just like the police a lot of the time, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good that the police does, but when most of the times the police are there with a meat wagon and a pencil, right? They're the police are the janitors. And so again, I'm not trying to denigrate police officers. I think I do think uh, they do provide a very important service.
Yeah, there are a lot of good ones. I will say that there are a lot of good ones.
Right, but most of the time, the police, the role the police are playing is janitor. You know, and again, they come with they bring a corner van and they bring a pencil.
It's cleanup, not prevention, most of the time.
Right.
Which is, and I think that for a lot of those guys, I feel so bad for them because they're trying to, they're crime fighters with their pig tied, their legs and their hands tied behind their back. Not really a lot of things that they can do. Like there was a time where it was like the fact that like, hey, like that that hoodlum down the street caused all this graffiti or vandalism. It's like we need to do something about that, and they would, and there was much more repercussion, or there was that kind of that understanding of like the what helped clean up New York City was the broken window policy. Is like if you tackle a lot of these stupid small crimes, that if they're allowed to just continue, it's like, oh well, I can cross this line. Can I cross this line? Oh, I can cross this line. Oh, I'm going to cross that line. And it's just this constant like it's like a kid testing a parent. Like, how far can I go before there's any actual punishment? And right now we're at a point where like the line has gone so fucking far where I mean it's like mass murders are happening, and that you have these district attorneys and prosecutors are like boys will be boys, right? It's like fuck that. Like and even like one of the most liberal cities in the world, San Francisco, even they has like they kicked out their district attorney because like fuck this, like no, we need to actually have somebody that is going to prosecute crime in some form or fashion, not this Chesawoodine fuckstick who is a
he comes from a long line of leftist lunatics. His parents were in the Weather Underground.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what that is, they're a far left domestic terrorist organization. They were responsible for a few bombings, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day.
Yeah, it's like he comes from a long line of assholes.
That too.
Yeah. So it's like even they are like, yeah, you know what, we've had enough of this.
Yeah, and I mean even like the school boards too, and thank God for Asian parents, because the only reason why those three like leftist extremist school board members got kicked off was because of Asian parents, because the Asian parents know about meritocracy, and like they were like talking like one of like the most prestigious like high schools that they have in San Francisco, and it's like one of the best, and it's like it's like going to like an Ivy League, it's like the first steps into like getting going into like Ivy League schools or whatever.
Yeah.
And like and that high school was completely merit based, and because of like the high emphasis that Asian families put on education, like most of the kids that are being admitted into that high school were Asians. And like those and the school board members, they were trying to make it into a lottery. And so those Asian parents, they got activated. They're like, oh no, you fucking don't. I didn't pay like $2,000 a month for my daughter or my son to learn piano or violin, and send them to tutors, every day after school for another 3 hours, just so you can give like, Tyrone or Buford, my kid's spot
that he earned.
that he or she earned.
And they're right. They're 1,000% correct in that. And I do wish that we emphasize kind of like the college education way too much. But at the same time, if it should be a meritocracy, like the people that put in the grades, they put in the extra time, they put in that effort, they deserve those spots. And we shouldn't just get, oh well, we need to have a certain percentage of this race and this race. It's like, no, so you are throwing one race down the or several races down the toilet just so you can prop up these ones. And it's like, and I'm not saying they all do, but a majority of those that are propped up, they are set up to fail.
Because they can't perform at the level.
Here's the thing: it's not that they're not smart, but like that is a different level. They're when you go to the Ivy League, that is a very scholarly based education. It's extravagant. It's a whole different experience. I wouldn't perform well at like Harvard or Yale. I wouldn't perform at those places. I wouldn't, because I don't care about that shit. And neither does Tyrone or Jamal. They don't care about that stuff either. But that doesn't mean that they're dumb. But now when they go to these schools and they fail, which happens a lot of the time, now they feel like, oh, I don't belong in this this system, and they feel dumb, and they feel
or they mistakenly what's the word I'm looking for? They misplace their anger, and then they go, oh, it's just the white man trying to hold me down.
Exactly. And
it's like, that's racialisms.
Yeah, I've been bringing Malcolm X up a lot recently, but like he's like, he wants people to be educated.
Malcolm X, he got it. All right, that dude gets it.
I have been really diving into like his story and like his philosophy, and like while I don't agree with some all of it, there's a lot of things that he did get correct, and it's like he was all about like he wanted black people educated. He wanted black people to be able to defend themselves. He wanted all these things. Like, yeah, of course, I think this is a great idea. And it's like, and it wasn't about like getting the black community into Harvard and Yale. It was like, no, it's like you find like where you belong.
If anything, he was about creating their own Harvards and their own Yales. It's funny because a lot of people don't know this, but Martin Luther King, he was more a fan of W.B. Du Bois than he was of Booker T. Washington.
Get the fuck out of here, really?
Yeah. And if those of you who don't know, W.E.B. Du Bois, he was more of the, kind of like he was more of a communist, really, because he was more like, the central planning and like, oh, let us have black leaders, and like they'll be like our elites, and they'll be the ones that help like.
Well, that's what won out, because if you look at any of like Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago, and look how great those cities are running right now.
Yeah, and Booker T. Washington, he was more of the just give us opportunities and and get out of the way.
And that's how it should be.
And yeah, that's what Malcolm X's like philosophy eventually became, because a lot of people, yeah, everyone like kind of focuses like his more like militant, his more militant days, like early on, where
He
but
went away from that stuff.
yeah, but as the years went on, like his views started to become softened, and he started to see like the grift that was like the Nation of Islam, and it's like, man, this is like bullshit. Like at least the teachings of like Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah, well, and even Ali went away from that stuff too. That's something else that people don't realize.
Right.
Muhammad Ali was another, a famous, Nation of Islam guy, and he ended up like retracting from them too.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
it's kind
right.
of like the same idea, like where it's like, uh, it's just it's crazy like to think about that. It's like, man, this guy was speaking so much wisdom. No wonder he was killed.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Because Malcolm X, he like legitimately he was trying to get them off the plantation, as opposed to, what I'm like discovering about Martin Luther King. He was like more like trying to keep them on the plantation.
Yeah, and he was much more of a degenerate than Malcolm X was a good family man.
Yeah, I
Martin Luther
mean,
King was not. He, like I said, I'm not. What happens behind closed doors is one thing, but like he was kind of a degenerate.
yeah, and most likely a homosexual.
What?
Yeah, there is some evidence that's indicating that.
That's I had not heard that. Okay.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah. Again, like if you okay, it's like kind of like, I don't know, as more stuff is starting to come out about Martin Luther King, it's just like you better chill the fuck out.
He was on that. He was investigating whatchamacallit, Martin Luther King.
Yeah. I mean, like you better, yeah. But like, yeah, leftists who invoke the name of Martin Luther King is like, okay, you better chill the fuck out, because I will fucking blow your mind. Because that's like the whole thing right now. It's like as these things are being revealed about Martin Luther King, it's like his like public legacy is like what's kind of like keeping all out like collapse of you know kind of American society.
Yeah,
Because like
I'm
if
not. I'm not saying the guy didn't have good ideas and like that he would like that everything that he did was bad. It's not. Uh, but the more that I like really look into things, like because he's kind of like the guy like I remember growing up, Martin Luther King Jr. was the guy. That's as far as when it came to like the black leaders and all that stuff. When we did like Black History Month, everyone wanted to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. It's like no one talked about Malcolm X, and it's kind of like when you start to actually like dive deep into the story. Did Malcolm X say some crazy shit? Absolutely, but people only see a part of the story. They don't want to look at the whole thing. And did he?
Yeah, I mean, most people don't even realize that Martin Luther King, like his influence is waning, and like the most like the greatest thing that ever happened to him was being assassinated.
Yeah,
Like,
he
cause
was.
like at the point, like yeah, cause he was losing like influence within like the civil rights movement, and like
He was a
and
communist. He was a
yeah,
communist.
yeah, he was a
Like that.
communist.
And like a lot because people they see like the I have a dream, great speech. And I 1000% agree with that. That's great. But a lot of his other like stuff, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like you're no, I don't want that for the country. That's bad. That's not bad just for black people. It's bad for everybody. Like no. But then like Malcolm X, he says some crazy shit at the beginning, and that's part of like the influence of the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm. Right,
But
but then yeah,
then
then he started
and
calling out white liberals, and then I was like, oh no, we gotta get rid of this motherfucker.
but then like he starts to like starts to make sense of stuff, and like he evolves, he changes, and it's like, hey, he even said, like, I'm no longer going to refer to Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. I'm not with them anymore. And he started speaking to himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it's like, that was his awakening in my eyes, where it's like, and that's when, like, yeah, now he became dangerous. That's when he became dangerous, because he was wanting to enrich Black people, to enrich, not, and like, yeah, did he maybe like want to be like, uplift them? He wanted them to defend themselves. He wanted them to educate themselves, and we can't fucking have that. And that's, we talked about this, for the last couple of weeks, where, like, where did gun control come from? The idea of gun control, because crazy white liberals didn't want Black people to defend themselves. That's where the idea of gun control came from, which nobody wants to hear, because it's a scary fucking, it's a, oh, that no, that's not what, no, I don't want that. That's why, like,
Right, yeah, no one wants to. Everyone thinks that they're the good guy, and like they don't want to be, they don't want to look like, they don't want to look the fool, and like and like thought of like this person who was like hoodwinking them into following like this blatant, like these laws that is blatantly stem from racism, because like, yeah, gun laws were only implemented in Democrat states, or democratically held states, uh, because like they were afraid that Black people would get guns and then start killing, like going after former slave masters.
Yeah, and that's, I know, they kind of joked about that in, like, Chappelle's show, like, kind of, well, one of the ideas for, like, the last season, when Dave Chappelle kind of ended up leaving,
Mm-hmm.
one of his writers, Nick Brennan, who is a white liberal, he, like, he had created this, or he was trying to create this skit of, like, the last day of slavery,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, where it's like, oh fuck, they're gonna come after us. It's like, that's maybe in some cases, like, like, where, like, you have, like, the really shitty slave owners who would, like, beat and rape their slaves every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd want to kill those people too, but I think, like, I don't think that was going to happen, like, all
Right.
across the
Right. Yeah.
board.
Again, it's like one of those unfounded fears, that these white people had. But I'm sure, like, I'm sure all the newly freed slaves, all they wanted to do was, to get their part of the American dream. Just get their land, work it, and come up. That's all they wanted.
And it's weird, like, when the other thing that really bothers me too is how the Bible ends up getting horribly abused,
Mm-hmm.
to, like, to justify some of the worst things in history. Like, it's kind of like where, because Bible scholarship is very low, especially nowadays. But in a lot of cases, it's always not been great to begin with, and so you have, like, when the idea of abolition started coming up, and, like, it started becoming more popular, because when slavery was started, no one was saying, like, oh, they weren't using the Bible to justify slavery. It was just like, oh, this is just a practice that we're gonna do. And they thought of just, these aren't people, this is property. But as more momentum came of the abolition movement, that's when people started utilizing, like, oh, well, no, the Bible, that we're gonna, in the Bible it says that, and so that's where, like, why this kind of extended out. You also had, nowadays we're getting the same thing with the whole, like, abortion movement and all that stuff. It's like, they're justifying their horrible actions, in from, like, from the Bible. It's really odd. It's all these awful things just keep happening. It's like I said, we talk about like Star Wars, where like it's just, you know, history, it rhymes. You know, it's just like Star Wars, it rhymes.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah, I
same
mean,
fucking things happen over and over and
yeah, I
over
mean,
and over.
it's no different. I mean, even now, like with like the whole COVID thing, they're saying like, oh, like love your neighbor as yourself. Get the shot, get the jab, wear the mask. But it's like
That's not loving my neighbor.
that's not loving your neighbor as your like. Okay, that's not okay because here's what they do. They say, oh, love thy neighbor, you know, you know, you know, you know. But they never finished that quote. It's like love your neighbor as you would love yourself. And I wouldn't love myself by limiting my oxygen or taking an experimental gene therapy. So like how would I like how would I do it? And also okay, let's take it the opposite for you. All right, you know love thy neighbor, like let me sleep with your wife. Love thy neighbor.
I love my neighbor.
I know, like that. It's like, yeah, don't you love me, neighbor? Let me sleep with your wife. Love thy neighbor. Like, really love thy neighbor.
It's just, it's really, it's some weird. I feel like I said, yeah. The more that I look at like things where it's like, man, all this shit. It's different. It's the same present in different packages. In different like wrapping every time, but it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
the
happening.
same. It's
It's
the
happening
same
century.
fucking stupid ass sweater that your aunt gives you every Christmas.
Yeah, it's happened century after century after century after century. It's the same fucking thing.
I mean, yeah, kind of like uh, to go off another sci-fi franchise that I really love, Battlestar Galactica. They took the idea um, from actually it's from Peter Pan, but it's like all this has happened, all this will happen again. And like in Battlestar Galactica, they heavily they utilize the cyclical nature of time. So it's like in their sacred in their scriptures, like there's a cycle of life, of creation, life, death, destruction, and then rebirth.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's kind of yeah, and so like it could be argued the same thing is happening now. It's like because again like we was it last week when I had that epiphany about like the whole like 3/5 thing, and it's like holy crap, it's just the Democrats trying to use black bodies to get more votes, and like what's happening now, like they're constantly
The
pushing
same
for
fucking thing.
immigration, only because like they want to use like now like these brown bodies to as for votes.
Yep. It's the same people doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what people will watch this. If you're when I want you to, we're saying some kind of crazy stuff. If to just to like the untrained eye, but I want you to
The
think.
uninitiated, it sounds crazy.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. You know, had you had you told, if this same conversation that I'm hearing, that I'm talking about today, had I heard this like 20, 25 years ago, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy. This is it's But no, it's once you get more, just look at the things that are happening. Like I didn't know anything about like guys like Malcolm X. Like I said, read his biography. Watch the Spike Lee movie. Listen to like the interviews that this guy gave, and like listen to like look at his whole life, because people look at his like crazy militant Nation of Islam days. They don't look at like the whole picture of like where he ended up,
Mm-hmm.
because where he ended up was where he became real dangerous uh to the established order.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's
there's
what
like that. Yeah, there's that interview where he was like describing like the most dangerous creature in the forest is the white liberal, because he's like the fox. It's like With the wolf, he'll bare his teeth and he'll let you know that he's gonna fuck you up. But the fox, it tricks you into thinking that it's your friend because it's smaller than the wolf, even though it looks like the wolf, and that it'll bare its teeth, but it'll bare its teeth in a way that it looks like it's smiling at you.
Yep, and he's right. That's exactly what happens. And that is, and it's like, fuck, he's got us. Like, and so it's like, oh, and the Nation of Islam is, I would say, like, at the time, and even now, the Nation of Islam is essentially, they are enacting the way of the white liberal.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any, how many of these, of the libs, how many of them, like, look at, like, Farrakhan, with, so, oh, I want to meet this guy. Yeah, fuck the Jews, fuck all these people, and, like, or, like, they want to, like, shuck and jive and shake hands and kiss babies with Farrakhan, and it's like, this guy's a terrible person, and, like, their whole philosophy of this group is not good, and the people that, like, they are probably responsible for the death of Malcolm X. If not the white liberals themselves, it was probably the Nation of Islam that killed him.
Mm-hmm. Right, because it was a grift. Because they're like, they're trying to build up. They're telling black people, oh yeah, we're strong, we're this, we're that. The white people are the enemy. Now give us money.
Yeah, but like I said, you look at, like, you look at the character of a person, like, right, like, we are finding out more information. As time has gone on, we found out more information about, like, Martin Luther King's, like, his personal life. It's not good. There's definitely affairs, we know that,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot worse that was going on in his personal life.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily take away from some of the truths that he said, but it makes him not a good guy. Those same character flaws, while did he say some outlandish things? Certainly. Did he make mistakes? Absolutely. He was, in his early life, not a good guy, but he came around and became something more of a much more moral character. And by the time he was assassinated, he's not, once he got, like, married and all that stuff. I don't think he cheated on his wife. I don't think he was an adulterer. I don't think he was a grifter. I don't think that he was, all these things that are now people are starting to see about, like, Martin Luther King.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a metatextual analysis, look at everywhere that there's a everywhere that there's a Martin Luther King Boulevard or Martin Luther King Jr. Street. It is it in like the best neighborhoods? Is it is is
That
it
was a good question too. It's like, he's like,
is it a beacon for hope and prosperity?
no.
No. If you really want a metatextual analysis, look at every city that has a Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard or whatever, or a street named after Martin Luther King. Look at the neighborhood. Look at the economics. Look at the cultural. Look at what the culture's like in those neighborhoods. I'm just saying.
Yeah. It's, I would, and what I encourage people to do, look at the entirety of, if you're looking at a person, look at the entirety of their life. See their flaws, see their achievements, see their great, their great points and their low points. When you're looking at, certain, historical events, what was a lot of those historical events, there are good things and there are bad things. You have to look at the entirety of the thing. We talk about like with Martin Luther King. Was there truth that he was saying? Absolutely. Same thing we talked about how with Jordan Peterson, were there truths that he was speaking? Sure. I think so. I think that like there are certain things that he was saying that were like I would absolutely agree with that. I think that that is a good truth and that people should look into that. But are there other things that are going on within his personal life or just in like where he's saying that doesn't mean that he's an expert at everything else too. Just because he's saying a truth here doesn't mean that everything else around him is like or everything else that he says is amazing. No. And I think that people have a hard time dealing with that. It's just
Perhaps. I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know. I mean, that's why I try not to reference Martin Luther King as much because cause I know that because I know about like his more seedier life and
and
and as much as like yeah his as much as like his message might have been like good or whatever, but I know it's tainted. So
and
it's
we're not.
so
It's
I
not
can't so I can't I can't so I can't necessarily like always I can't necessarily like buoy him up. It's just like it's kind of like the ending of Dark Knight, where it's like Harvey Dent turned out to be the murderer, but then Batman took the fall, and so like they buoyed up Harvey Dent as like the savior, and Batman took the fall.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
That
then I mean ultimately look what ended up happening in the Dark Knight Rises when Commissioner Gordon, he was gonna confess to what had happened, but eventually when Bane starts his takeover of the city, he lets it be known that it was Harvey Dent that was the one that murdered all those people, and
and it created fucking chaos, and
yeah,
that's
it created
exactly
chaos.
that's where we're at right now. That art speaks true to life, right? It's the. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like where when we denigrate the name of like the things that we're saying about like Martin Luther King, it's like they're not. It's not like this is speculation. It's provable fact in a lot of cases.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's like, and so yeah, it's like now we're like, those of us who know, it's like we're in the position of Commissioner Gordon, who's like, do we let people know like about this guy, or do we again like, uh, or do we just continue to live with the lie, of like the myth of Martin Luther King, or do we let or we let the reality of Martin Luther King come to light? I don't know. It's hard. I get it. It's a difficult kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's why people on the right aren't like hammering Martin Luther King in public, or not calling for like the removal of his holiday, or even like the Martin Luther King monument, uh, because eventually because if we did it would be utter chaos. you know
It's funny because you you bring up an interesting point, right? Because you would think that, especially nowadays, especially kind of like the like kind of like BLM, whatever, they would be like lauding for like a Malcolm X Day, right?
Mhm.
There's no Malcolm X Day.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's no Malcolm X Day, but there is a Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
I am, to be honest, like that I am shocked. Maybe not, but like it's like what you would almost think that like they'd want this suppose the way that they talk about Malcolm X, like he's just like, oh, he was this militant black man, and like he was trying to shock the system, blah blah blah, and It's like you would think that would be the guy that would get the holiday, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. He's not the guy that got the holiday. It was Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Exactly. There you go. That's the first step in a journey which I hope people would take. It's like why is there no Malcolm X Day? Why is there no holiday on Malcolm X's birthday?
It's just wow, yeah, it just blows my mind because the guy I think Malcolm X was a hell of a lot smarter, and he had that was the guy that had his finger on the pulse, and it got him killed.
Mm-hmm. Again, that guy, yeah, Malcolm X, he got it. He gets it.
Like I said, 20 years ago, I would have never thought that at all. But it just I went on this weird journey. I was like, this guy is so interesting. Like I would have I never thought about this guy at all. Because all you hear about is, and that's one of those things, like this historical figure. All you hear about is the bad stuff about this guy. Like, oh, he's this crazy militant guy. Everyone's putting their fists in the air. It's like it's for Malcolm X. And it's like that's not what this guy was about at all. And everyone forgets about like like the last like couple years of his life, like where his whole philosophy changed. Where he once he was like abandoned and betrayed by the group that he was trying to the only reason that the Nation of Islam exists today is because of that guy, because he had initially believed in their philosophy, and his charisma was so powerful that he built them up.
Right.
That's the only. No one would know who the fuck Elijah Muhammad was if it wasn't for Malcolm X. Because he bought into their philosophy. And when he woke up and realized like, how they're lying to me, they're not this like wholesome group that I was told. Yeah. He left them. I know it's very rare when someone wakes up from like their cult experience, but that's because he felt like I was rescued because of this philosophy. And when he started to see like they are not what they say that they are. Oh shit. He didn't double down. He's like, fuck this. I can't be a part of this. And he went on his own, and he's like, I've been using the name of Elijah Muhammad and this group, in my speeches. That will happen no more. I will speak for myself. How powerful is that? You're speaking for yourself to empower people. That's wow. That's great. I just that takes a lot of courage, and that's definitely what got him assassinated, because he did that.
Yeah, he went off script.
Yep, and
they can't have you go off script.
Once he went from being a pawn to a king, that's when they're like, oh fuck this guy. They had to eliminate him.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah, that was a very interesting discussion that we had. But yeah, I mean, don't get twisted. We don't hate black people, or
we don't. I don't hate black people.
And again, like I don't. It's just we'll make a deal. I won't go after Martin Luther. I won't call for the denunciation of Martin Luther King. And you don't. And you just leave me alone.
I don't necessarily want him denounced. Like, I'm not gonna go that, because like I said, is a guy. Did he say some truths? Absolutely. Was he kind of a degenerate? Also, absolutely.
Yeah, and
He,
yeah,
and that,
and he was he was a subverter. Like, and for all intents and purposes, he was a communist.
um,
But
and
yeah,
yeah,
I won't go. I won't go after your sacred cow. All right, because it's ultimately, it's God is the one who's going to decide. If God deems that it's time for Martin Luther King to be, you know, brought down as, then God's going to do it. And and
in a weird way, I don't, when we watch like Luke Cage, it kind of deals with this kind of like same kind of vein in a lot of ways, where you have like this, the bad guy, his dad was like kind of this kind of Martin Luther King type, where like, he's this reverend, but like he's a degenerate at the same time, and created this, the first season at least, kind of created this bad situation that caused the friction in the first season of Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Although, yeah, they totally subverted the second season, but yeah, I mean, yeah, like Luke Cage was a very inspirational character. Like, he, was trying to talk. He was like, before they kicked the shit out of all the bad guys. He gave him a chance. He was like, there's like that one scene where he was like outside of like the rec center or whatever, where they're keeping all the money. And, like, he gave like this kid a chance. Like, oh, just like, do you well, it's kind of like preaching at him a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting.
But yeah, we'll get into our last news story of the day before we get to the movie review, which is kind of the soup du jour of what's going on.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, this will be quick because there's still like not a whole lot of information and nothing can be really verified.
But this I'm gonna use the bathroom. You introduce the story.
Yeah. Okay. All right. For those of you who don't know, but former President Trump was raided by the FBI the other night, and under some of like the what we're learning is like the flimsiest justification out there is that he's suspected of breaking this rule about classified materials, and you're after his term was after he wasn't reelected, um, he was supposed to hand over all relevant materials uh, concerning his administration over to the National Archivist, but uh, but again, President Trump is suspected of holding on to certain classified materials, and so that's the fig leaf that the FBI is using or that's the fig leaf that the FBI used to execute their raid on President Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago. But yeah, there's still some like really weird things that are coming to light about like potential connections, particularly with like one of the judges who signed the warrant. Like, supposedly, um, he used to be like a prosecutor, like a federal prosecutor, who then who left you know what is it, like the I forget what it's called, but like he basically stopped being a federal prosecutor and then opened up his own practice and then took on a bunch of known associates of Jeffrey Epstein. Again, this isn't like this isn't.
Oh,
I don't know if this has been verified, but that's kind of like uh, some stuff that's come out. Right. Again, take this with a
it
grain
would
of
not
salt.
wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, and so yeah, the judge, but then he eventually, after like he made his career allegedly, protecting, pedophiles or whatever, he went back to uh, the not necessarily federal government, but like he did become a judge. He's like for some like in Florida, he's called like a magistrate or something, and so like he was the one to sign off, one of the judges that signed off on the warrant.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, like but I was just I don't know if you heard, but I was explaining like one of the fig leaf that the FBI was using was that Trump had kept like classified materials.
Yeah, yeah, and like, oh, he's held it in a safe.
Yeah, and like
And
he was, and like everything, like everything pertinent to like his administration or whatever, he was supposed to turn over to like the National Archivists um, for preservation or whatever. Um,
yeah,
but allegedly, like he didn't turn over all materials, and so that's the fig leaf that the FBI is using to justify their
yeah,
raid.
yeah, like how Hillary Clinton, had all these like classified documents that she ended up destroying, and there was nothing that happened to her. Oh wow, it's so weird.
Right? Yeah. It's these people have like no sense. They're such hypocrites, and like they have no they have they're so deranged that they can't even like put two and two together. It's like, oh, like the same thing that Trump was calling Hillary out for, like you are now and she actually did. Like it's like there was like that scene. There was a clip I saw from like back then on CNN where one of the guests brought up the fact that it's like, oh yeah, she was like just destroying like smart Blackberries and things like that. Like I forget who it is, some dumb bitch, but she was like one of the big name hosts on CNN. It's like, oh wait, we need a fact check. We need a fact check. Is that a fact? Is like, can we fact check that right there? Before we get sued. And it's like yes, that happened. It's like, damn it, just like
Yeah. It's funny. It's kind of the same thing because was it Alex Jones? He's been going through there's been a trial that he's been involved with,
right.
and like I think the attorney the attorney on the opposing side was like, you really believe that there are pedophiles involved with the government? It's like, you mean like Jeffrey Epstein with the Clintons? Like, oh shit, fuck.
I know, and that's on record now forever.
It's the same fucking thing. It's just like it's like, well, we didn't get because we're involved with so and so. Of course, we're not going to prosecute them, but now we're
Right?
going
Yeah.
to.
It's like and like they came up with this wholly they came up with this wholly convoluted excuse, like, oh, well, yeah, she had the classified documents, but there was no malicious intent. There was no like, she wasn't like trying to,
It's
like
all
malicious intent, like it, like that, like, oh, she wasn't, she didn't know she was doing a bad thing, or she didn't know that. I was like, so it's like, oh, so she's incompetent. But it's like, oh, no, but like, she wasn't planning on doing bad things with that information. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
stupid. It's so stupid. Like I said, we don't have a whole bunch of information, but the reality is that they don't want everything is so focused on Trump. Like he's been out of office for 2 fucking years, all right? And the mainstream media can't keep they have to keep talking about Trump because for whatever reason everything is involved with Trump. It's like, okay, there's other things that are happening in the world. He's been out of office for 2 years, okay? And they are afraid that this guy is going to run again, and they're going to try to prevent that. It's like, well, I think we've been pretty fair on this show, where it's like I've said, like, now in the general election, for the Republican general election, I'm not voting for him because he's too fucking old, and he's definitely lost, he's lost touch with, like, what is happening in the country. And
what is it? Yeah, the whole rally where he brought on, like, members of the Johnson Johnson family.
yeah,
It's
it's
just
like
like, but
stupid.
also this could be a play to get Trump in. Because now he's like the martyr figure, and it's like, oh, look at these corrupt people who did this to me.
Man,
But also it benefits, like, it benefits outlets like CNN, because, like, they didn't have ratings like they did, like, like when Trump was in office, you know.
but that's all. If that's the case, if this is all some, like, some conglomerate plot, it's like even more reason, like, that. Okay, I think we've been, like, like I said, there are things that Trump did in office that I liked. There's things that he did that I didn't like.
Yeah,
Um,
the bump stock
that
stuff.
Yeah, his whole last year was awful. Like, everything, like every move he made was bad. Um, but there was a lot of things that he did. It was like, yeah, like, I agree with that. I want that to happen, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting the apple cart, for one, but it's like, but they're good moves. But then that last year, it was just like, I don't know. COVID turned everyone crazy. It's ridiculous. I was just like, people that I thought were sane ended up becoming insane. It's just like,
Right.
wow.
Yeah.
It was both for you and I. It was an awakening.
Yeah. You know, um, I don't know if you remember her, but this woman, Bevelyn Beatty.
Hmm.
She's the woman who went and, like, dumped the black paint on the BLM mural outside of Trump Tower in New York,
Yeah,
and she was the one that got stabbed by, like, that Antifa person.
yeah.
But I caught a live she was doing on Instagram, and it was crazy because it was, like, so perfect, because she was, like, talking about, 'cause she's a very spiritual woman, and I do believe that, she is very in tune with, like, with God. Um, but she gave the perfect analogy for Trump, and she said that Trump is Saul. Trump is
Okay.
Saul because, yeah, because, like, because, everything is under everything is under the sovereignty and province of God, and so it wasn't God, it wasn't the people, it wasn't the deep state or whatever that put Trump into office. It was God, and for a time, Trump, he had a Saul moment, and that was, when he had the chance to open up the country again, but he didn't do it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, Trump is Saul, and so if Trump is Saul, then that means there's a David coming.
Well, that I agree with. But like I said, if this, like I said, if this is some, if people, this is really like some, like, oh, it's a media uh plot, because CNN, like, they're useless. I mean, CNN Plus was such a joke. Oh God, it was so bad. But, like, the no one cares about their network. No one, and but the only reason that, like, they have any sort of ratings is because they talk about this guy, and this guy's finger's not on the pulse anymore. But they,
Right,
but
but
for
then
whatever.
also that could be a way, because, if how badly Trump was in the last year, perhaps he has been subverted, so he may not be the same Trump.
He's
That
not the same
I
Trump.
know,
I
I know
think
he's not the same Trump, but, like, there's a lot of people that think that he will be, like, the same Trump or even better because of all of, like, the mistreatment that he suffered. But if he has become subverted, then indicated by that last year of his term, or the last year of his last term, then the like whoever's like the hand behind all of it is actually trying to get Trump into office.
I would love to have the belief that like guys like Sebastian Gorka have about Trump right now, but I don't like. One, he's too old. I'm sorry, he's old. He's as old as Biden was when he ended up becoming
in 2019.
too
Yeah.
old. And like I said, he was not, that last year was not a good year. I'm sorry. It's, you could say it's not his fault. It's not his fault. It's like, yeah, it's not his fault in some ways, but he could have had a more forward vision. It's like, yeah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to let fear take hold of, we're going to deal with this. And things are going to work out. It's okay. We're working on a variety of things, but no, he allowed Dr. Fauci to,
run roughshod over all of us.
Come back from his rat hole, that he had lived in for 40 years, to re-immerse himself into society. Because had anyone heard from Dr. Fauci since the AIDS epidemic? No. I mean, he had been in that position forever, but like, I can't think of another Dr. Fauci moment from like the 90s and like 2000s.
Yeah, like Obama didn't put him, front and center for swine flu, or Bush for bird flu.
Swine flu into the pit of like nothingness.
Yeah, or Bush didn't put him front and center for bird flu.
No, but no, Trump is like, well, we're gonna bring out Dr. Fauci. It's like, why are you bringing this fucking dumbass out? And it's just, like I said, a lot of bad decisions by Trump in that last year. It's like, and it's not. Maybe someone had his ear, but then it's like, then again, that's a Trump decision at the same time. You've allowed this person to have your confidence in your ear, and you're the guy that's making the decisions. Sure, that guy is the one that's influencing things, but you're the guy that's making the decisions.
Right.
And you made a lot of bad decisions in that last year. And since that time, you've kind of doubled down on those bad decisions. And you're right in a sense where like where are we, if he is going to be running again, are we getting the same guy that ran in 2016 as opposed to like this version of Trump? Is that the same is that the same guy? It's not.
No, of course not.
Now, would I vote for him over a guy like Biden? Well, that yeah, obviously, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at the point where I'm like not even. Yeah, I might not even vote. I mean, I might vote for I'm gonna vote for local stuff. Yeah, of course, but for federally, I might not even vote.
I'm kind of like going that direction. Yeah, you and I are kind of in the same boat because
unless a David shows up, then yeah, I'm not gonna. I might not vote.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, maybe a guy like if DeSantis is up against Biden, that would definitely be a guy I would vote for. Now would I prefer him to stay in Florida and like kind of, I would really like us to go back to like caring more about like our own local elections and like kind of our state elections, and letting that be like the more priority, and having that to be the more where the media has their attention, and we don't give us so much of a shit about like the president that's running things and limiting their powers, uh, that would be ideal, because that's how the country is supposed to run. We're not supposed to, we're not supposed to give so much power to the president. We should have, what should concern us is our city councilmen, our governor, our mayor, our, what's happening within our
Yeah,
states.
hell, our dog catcher is more important than who the president is.
Exactly. And like I said, our the president of the United States, like they've shown they can't protect our borders. They can't protect us against the things that we have. The Constitution charges them to protect. So why? And like I've heard news articles about like some of the people that are running for governor or whatever of like Arizona. They're like, if I make it, we're gonna make uh a declaration to secede from the union, because the federal government is not fulfilling they're not fulfilling the constitutional promise that's being said. And it's like, I can't argue with that. This isn't like a slave non-slave thing where it's like, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. This time around, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of behind that. I've even heard that like there was an article that I read about like how like San Bernardino is they're trying to secede from like Los Angeles County. Like they want to be their own city, or
I,
you know
well, I don't think they are part of LA County. Uh,
no, but like they're or the
yeah, because
they're
I think San Bernardino is its own separate
like
county.
California. I think what it was, they're trying to secede from California itself. Like they wanted to become like their own thing,
Oh, they want to be their own city state.
which at this point I'm like, yeah, California's a shit show. Okay. It's like, if you can be like financially viable by yourself without it, yeah, why not?
Yeah, but it's still fresh, and yeah, there isn't a ton of details about this. So yeah, I guess yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on it. You know,
This will definitely be, this is going to be in the news cycle for like the next several months. There's going to be
yeah,
updates. We're going to find out more information. We're not gonna be the guys who are like, oh yeah, Trump is this, or he's no, we're gonna defend Trump. It's like, who knows? We don't. Do I trust the FBI? No. Do I trust the Department of Justice? No. Um, this is not the FBI story. Jimmy Stewart FBI story, FBI anymore. This has become a weaponized tool of the government, and it's just not the same thing. It's not the idea that the FBI was supposed to be, where it was a way to help coordinate between the states. The because every state has their own, like, every county, every district, every state has their own, like, police force. And sometimes information between those police forces gets separated. Like California and Florida and Texas, they might not be able to coordinate with each other. That was where the FBI came in. It's like, it was a way for them to be able to help coordinate between all of the states. Like, people, like fugitives who were operating throughout the different states. And it's like, hey, this murderer has been, we're seeing similarities in Texas, Florida, Mississippi. And so the FBI gets involved. It's like, hey, we're seeing this pattern that, like, you should help. We're going to help coordinate the information. That's what the FBI was supposed to be. And there was a time where that was true. The way that the FBI is used nowadays, it's gone so beyond that. And in fact, like they're trying to promote, like, like, well, we're not actually like seeing like this, solving crimes are hard, so we're gonna make up our own crimes, implicate people, and then we're gonna arrest them. It's like, look how good we did.
Right. Yeah. It's become too centralized. Like the Washington headquarters. It's become too powerful, and before it was big. It was very much supposed to be like the FBI was definitely supposed to be run like decentralized. It's like California had their office. Kansas had their office, and everyone was supposed to like function like almost autonomously. That's the word.
Yeah,
Autonomously. And every once in a while they'll send the report back to Washington, but again, ultimately, they're supposed to be run autonomously. But once power started to get concentrated, like particularly in Washington, it just the FBI stopped being the FBI. And so for that purpose, I think it's like it's fit for the action, or at the very least, like restructured and try to decentralize as much as possible. But
yeah. Now,
I'm,
because now what the FBI has become, it's like where, like, it's you have two brothers. One of them shits on the purposely shits on the carpet, blames the other brother, and tells mom, and then cleans it up. The other brother that shit on the carpet cleans up the shit, blames the brother, and tells mom, and it's like, look how good I did. Didn't I do good, mom? That's what the FBI is now.
yeah, they're basically tattletales now.
They're
But we'll keep.
they're doing the crime, then blaming somebody else, implicating somebody else, cleaning up the mess, and then like saying like, how did I do good, mom? And lying about it.
Right. Yeah. Like Robert said, this story is gonna be gonna be front and center for a long time. So we'll keep an eye on it, and and I'm sure you guys will be hearing a lot of stuff. And I mean, if you're interested at all about what we think about it, we will happily give our 2 cents.
We'll
As the
probably
story
cover the
unfolds.
story in a couple of weeks as more information comes out. Because I'm curious about it. It is a story. I don't know how much importance I want to put on it, but we'll come back to it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
All
be
right.
honest. I'm exhausted of this shit. I'm so tired of this crap.
You and me both, man. You and me both.
This Banana Republic bullshit.
All right. Anyways, to cleanse our palates, let's get on to the movie review. We'll wrap it up.
My heart feels better already.
Let me hit everyone with the synopsis, and we'll get going. Just to remind you guys, the movie review tonight is for Raging Bull from 1980, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Kathy Moriarty, Frank Vincent. The story of a middleweight boxer as he rises through the ranks to earn his shot at the middleweight crown. He falls in love with a gorgeous girl from the Bronx. The inability to express his feelings enters into the ring and eventually takes over his life. He eventually is sent into a downward spiral and costs him everything.
So I have two questions for you, Andy. Because this was a movie of your choice. Why did you choose it? And when did you first come to Raging Bull?
Why did I choose it? I've never seen it. Again, I admit, at the beginning of the stream, it was one of those movies where the our term that we coined, cinematic archaeology, definitely applies because I saw this movie without actually seeing it because it's been parodied and imitated and homaged um, so much that like I've seen the movie without actually seeing the movie, and so I was curious, and and it's one of those Scorsese movies that I haven't watched yet, so I thought I'd give it a try.
Yeah, it's this is my, I think, like my second or third viewing of Raging Bull.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went down a whole, like, I was like, because it's weird when you chose this movie. I was like, all right, yeah, Raging Bull is awesome. I like it because I had seen it by this point, but um, when I was looking up stuff about it, I was like, oh shit, Criterion has, like, they this month they're doing a whole, like, they're doing a boxing month. I was like, and they have Raging Bull. I was like, fuck, yeah, awesome, all right. So I ended up, not only did I get to see Raging Bull again, but I got all the commentaries, the documentary about it, some of, like, the people talking about the movie. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go down this boxing rabbit hole. So I rewatched Champion with Kirk Douglas. I rewatched Rocky. I rewatched, or I started to watch The Harder They Fall with, which is the last movie of um, uh, Humphrey Bogart's career. And so yeah, so I kind of went down this boxing rabbit hole, because I wanted to watch movies that happened before Raging Bull. And Scorsese is a guy that he's a film connoisseur, not quite like Quentin Tarantino, where he's just like, I just watch movies, and so I'm going to make movies that look like the other movies that I watch. Scorsese actually does have an artistic eye, but he's not. I wouldn't say that Scorsese has a pretentious artistic eye. I think that he is doing his own thing, while at the same time, he is the definition of being inspired by something. He's not doing it like other people do it, but he's definitely inspired by the things that other people are doing. And we talked about it at the beginning of the show, where it's like, I have a hard time deciding, because my two favorite boxing movies are Rocky and Raging Bull, and I can't decide between the two, to be honest, because I think they're both great in their own ways. And if you catch me on a certain day, I'm probably going to say Rocky, and there's going to be days I'm going to say Raging Bull. And the journey that Scorsese went through to do this movie, because he admits, as like, I don't like sports. I definitely don't like fighting. He doesn't like, he thinks that boxing and like stuff like that, it's a blood sport. I'm not into it. And he admits that, and that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm a theater guy. I'm a movie guy. I like art. This is a whole world that I don't know. I'm not interested in. And he even said, for years, he's like, because Robert De Niro gave him De Niro had been reading Jake LaMotta's biography, Raging
Right.
Bull.
Yeah. Again. Yeah. If it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't in the synopsis, but yeah, like Raging Bull is an adaptation of autobiography by the boxer who's also like the main character in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. So Jake LaMotta is a real fighter, um, and De Niro loved his book so much, like Marty, and because this is him and Martin Scorsese have a lot of a connection together. It's like, Marty, you got to do this movie. We got to make this book, this biography. We have to do this. And Scorsese's like, no, I'm not going to do this. But De Niro, like, De Niro, right from that get go, like when he showed in that book, he was working as like he got into shape. He got into boxing shape. Like he did all the boxing training. He did all this stuff. He really got fit. And just because like I know he's gonna do this movie. He had this belief he's gonna do this movie. He doesn't know it, but he's gonna do it. And so, he kept pestering him. No, we got to do this. You got to do it, Marty. And there was a point like where there was a couple of movies that Scorsese did that didn't perform very well, and I've actually never seen them, but they didn't perform well in the theaters. Um, but he actually had kind of like somewhat like this mental breakdown in a sense, and he ended up going into the hospital. And while he was in the hospital, it kind of gave him a time to like rest. But De Niro came to him. It's like, yeah, and kind of to visit him, see how we check up on him. And it's like, Marty, we can do this. It's you're having a crisis right now, but this is going to break you out of this crisis. I guarantee it. And Scorsese had no choice. He's like, okay, fine, I'll do the fucking movie. And that's how Raging Bull got started. And Scorsese was so concerned because like I don't know anything about boxing. I don't know how I want to film this. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he was so concerned about how he was gonna do it. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it the way that I know how to do movies. I'm gonna, he almost made it like a very orchestral type of thing. Like, he felt like in the ring, it's like I'm gonna make this a very like we're doing dancing. We're gonna coordinate this, and that's where we get kind of that artistic feel to it. Now, where Scorsese was interested is more of like the tail of Jake LaMotta, the outside the ring. That's where like Scorsese was interested, but the inside the ring stuff, that's where he had trouble. It's like, how am I going to film this? How am I going to coordinate this? How are we going to do it? And I think that's what makes Raging Bull such a good movie, is that like someone with the brain and the eye of Scorsese, where he is doing something that he doesn't understand or know or like, but he's like, but I'm going to treat it with respect, and we're going to do it. I'm going to do it my way, but we're going to do it. We're not going to make fun of it or like, treat it like, just in a flippant way. He really, and I think that really why this movie is so iconic, why it's so good, is because of Martin Scorsese. And this could have easily just been another boxing movie that just kind of went by the wayside. And it's like, oh, it's another Rocky ripoff. It's another it's another ripoff of this. And while there's homages, the reason that this movie happened is because of the success of Rocky. And there's definitely like, some sort, I know Scorsese watched Champion with Kirk Douglas, because there's definitely elements of Champion in this movie. Mm-hmm. But there are, I would say that this is a movie that does stand alone. And this has become like, I would say like Rocky and this movie are the iconic boxing movies. Maybe you could also maybe argue that $1 Million Baby does kind of, wedge its way into that argument. But these are the iconic boxing movies, Rocky and Raging Bull.
Yeah, and it's very evident that that Scorsese wasn't really interested in like the fight stuff. I mean, particularly because like we never spend like too much time in the ring. But also, just like almost, yeah, again, like you said, because Scorsese had such an artistic eye in the way that like the choreographed nature of the fight scenes, like the kind of close-ups on the punches landing, on the faces, or the time spent, or the time spent like in the corners. The real action, the real interest for Scorsese was Jake LaMotta's like actual life, and like how he came up, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing too, because the story that is portrayed in Raging Bull is not necessarily like the actual Jake LaMotta story. There is, this is it's based on a true story, but it's not exactly the actual Jake LaMotta story. Um, they they took from a lot of things. They looked at a lot of home movies. They interviewed with his ex-wife, or his second ex-wife. They did a lot of stuff where they looked at like the home movies throughout like throughout his life, and they felt like, oh, I got more from those home movies than I did from reading the book. And they Jake LaMotta was a guy that was a consultant on the film, and he was definitely active throughout the entire process. And I think he trusted Scorsese. He was like, you tell your story. Like, what is interesting about like my story to you, and then if you need to fictionalize a few things, go for it. He was all for it. I think LaMotta did kind of know the movie business slightly, because he'd played some bit parts in some movies, and yeah, it's one of those things where the fights are what kind of centralize the movie, because the dates of the fights and who he fought are important, and the announcing that's happening during those fights, that's because Scorsese's like, we can't recreate, we talked about with Vin Scully and like kind of the great announcers, you can't recreate that, like that old time announcing. There's just a certain like cadence and tone that no one's ever going to recreate today. And so he utilized the original audio of these fights between the guys that he was fighting. And it's like, and that is what makes it like, it really grounds the movie. And the other thing, and that's also the reason why the film is in black and white, because the way that a lot of people saw these fights, it's like, yeah, I watched Jake LaMotta fight, like, on my, little black and white TV or on the radio. And it's like, no one's, we watched, Friday Night Fights and it was these, on these black and white televisions. That's how we saw the fights. And that's how people remembered it. And so they recreated that black and white experience. And every cast member and actors, like, we have to do this movie in black and white. Of course, it doesn't. If we can do it in black and white, fuck yeah, we're gonna do it in black and white. That's awesome. And I think that's what makes this movie so unique, is because it's done in this vintage way. And it does, you feel like you're in that time period. I don't feel like we're just doing a black and white movie to
Right.
do a
It's very immersive. It's very
yeah.
immersive.
It feels like a period piece that's done, way in the, but it's done in 1980, not 1940. But yeah, I look at this movie and I'm just like, wow, it's such a master. It really is a masterpiece in filmmaking. Yeah, it's just it's really great. What about like, because is this you said this is your first time watching it, right?
Yeah.
What are some of your takeaways from the film? Like, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Anything like that?
I don't like about it. Yeah, I really just enjoyed the. Again, as you were saying, this isn't like it's based on a true story, but it isn't accurate. But I think it told like a compelling enough story, and it doing like that, however many movie reviews we've been doing, I'm always a story guy. If you tell me a compelling story, then I'm gonna enjoy it. And here's a story of a guy who's trying to come up, and he's you know he wants to come up in his own way, and by his own terms, and and that's I think that's respectable. And but it's like, but it's also a story of a man who he was constantly getting in his own way.
Yeah.
Because
If this had been a rock star story, it would also work because it's a guy that can't get out of his own way. Like his insecurities end up ruling him.
Exactly. So yeah, so that's what I enjoyed about this movie. There's not many things that I dislike about this movie either, or like really anything. I'm hard pressed to think of anything that I didn't enjoy about this movie.
Like
just everything was like so on point. Even the point, like even like the makeup in when in later Jake LaMotta's life, and the prosthetics, and just like kind of like the grotesqueness of uh, of his face, of like you see the years of punishment that's on his face, like with his bulbous nose, and then also with like him just like kind of letting himself go, and just getting like fat, um, and just like his utter like acceptance in like this new role, this new part of his life, where he's like just an entertainer. Like, I mean, I guess technically that's what he's been his entire life, but now he's trying to tackle this new arena, in like acting and comedy and things like that.
And that's actually one of the aspects of the film that is true. Jake LaMotta did always struggle with the weight issues, like making weight for the fights, which is a big deal.
Right.
Because he was a guy, he did have smaller hands compared to the people he was fighting, and so he was a welterweight or a middleweight, so the next step up from that, I think, is heavyweight, and he would have gotten fucking rocked if he was in the heavyweight class. But he could compete in the middleweight. That's where like he ended up becoming a powerful fighter, is in the middleweight. But like had he allowed himself to go and become the weight that he's supposed to be, it would have been a fucking disaster. He didn't have the hands. He didn't have the size and the weight as a normal heavyweight. Like Muhammad, Cassius Clay and Joe Frazier would have destroyed his ass. Or Joe Louis would have killed him. It's not the same. It's a completely different fight.
Right.
And so he was constantly battling, making the weight.
Right. They kind of touch on, but like they don't really go like that deep. But there's that scene where he's in the steam room, and like he's like begging his trainers, like, oh, please let me have a glass of water.
And it's like, no, staying here for like another 2 hours. It's just, it's fucking, it's a rough life. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's not easy.
Well, maybe to counter as a counterpoint, like that's that's why they Scorsese included those exchanges between Jake and his brother Joey. Joey constantly calling him a fat fuck.
God, it was
Which
so
is like
great.
the way that Joe Pesci says fat fuck is my favorite way of saying fat fuck.
Oh, dude, it's him, Pesci and De Niro together. It's gold.
Mm-hmm.
They are well. Not only are they good friends in real life, but like it just the chemistry they have on camera is so good. And this is just another example of that. It's and to be honest, Joe Pesci does not get the recognition that he deserves of how great of an actor he is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he did he. It's just he just plays that role so well. Um, but yeah, no, the idea of Jake LaMotta was always constantly battling the weight issues. And for a time, like when you're hungry for the championship, yeah, you'll make that sacrifice. But LaMotta does end up reaching the top of the mountain. He does. He ends up winning the middleweight title. And then that's it's funny because that's really the climax of the movie. LaMotta
Yeah, right.
reaches his
He
high,
reaches the peak. Yeah, he reaches the peak, and now like there is his
and
descent.
the next scene that we see is where he descends into fucking hell, and where he goes to the lowest of the lows, and where he accuses of his brother of fucking his wife. And in fact, like the way that the dialogue was, because him and Pesci were such good friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they worked through like a lot of the dialogue, and the way that and I'm taking this from Joe Pesci himself, because this is what Joe Pesci said. He was saying that like the way that the dialogue went, they were he was actually like the way that De Niro phrased it and the way that he said it, as far as the dialogue went in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
Pesci himself was actually personally insulted and disgusted by the idea, like, you fuck my wife, and because it really did that. I don't think that was. I think that was an improvised line,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, because that's not what was supposed to be said, but the way that De Niro said it, and like it just Pesci made it felt real to him. It's like, how the fuck can you say that to me? And you see his face where it goes from like it's like, are you fucking around with me? It's like, and then like when he asks like, "Was you fuck my wife?" and you see his face go from like kind of like what, and to like very stern.
Yeah, it's like he was like kind of like he was kind of poking fun, but then all of a sudden like he could be like his face like it became very like incredulous. Like how the fuck do you ask me that question?
Yeah, and from the way that Pesci tells it, that was his genuine reaction to that question.
Mm.
Because De Niro and Pesci are method actors. They really buy into the characters that they're playing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's yeah. It's you feel that that's a genuine reaction. Like if your brother is so paranoid, and he just all of a sudden acts like, you fuck my wife, like that's how you would react.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe their performance. Like it felt real to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just this is one of those movies. The acting, the story, the way that they filmed it is so great. There's the
You know what it is? It's you don't feel the camera.
no, you don't.
You don't
Even
feel
though
the
like
camera.
there's those moments like where like in
Yeah,
the corner
there's like the cuts, and then there's like the view, the back view, but you don't feel the camera.
in the
You just
time
feel like you're there. You're part of that. Like what's going on.
it feels like you're reliving memories.
Mm-hmm.
You're because you're going from the 40s. You're going you're going to the throughout the 40s, you're going through parts of the 50s. We start at the 60s, we go backwards. We're going through these that time that I fought my brother, and I was so paranoid, and I punched the shit out of my brother, and I decked my wife to the point where she got knocked out. It's like it's almost like you're remembering your
Right,
life.
exactly. It's very mimetic. It's very mimetic.
Yeah, that's a great way to put about this movie, Raging Bull. It's like you're reliving a memory. It doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like you don't feel the camera, you don't feel the movie, you feel the memory. This tragic tale that you're reliving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And God, it's a Shakespearean tragedy in a lot of ways. Because
least of which, you definitely feel it when he's in the jail cell, like the solitary, because he's so rambunctious, and because he used to be a fighter, he could really hurt somebody, and so the two cops drag him into the hole essentially.
The production company wanted to cut that whole scene.
Really?
Yeah. They're like, this is stupid. Why are we filming this? And especially because it's black and white. We can only see part of De Niro's body. Why are we showing this?
Right.
And it's that's the pivotal scene of the movie. Scorsese felt he argued for it. This is a scene of the movie that is we can't cut this. The movie rides on this scene right here. The why scene. Because that changes Jake.
Exactly. It's crazy because that's him finally taking the moment, and and kind of doing some self introspection. It's why did I accuse my brother? Why did I throw that fight? Why did I why did I allow those 14-year-olds into my bar? Why did I it's all of this things all the things that he did that got in his own way, and just he's finally having that moment where he can be honest and start and really just be honest with himself.
That's where he became the person that he's supposed to be.
Right, exactly.
Where he saw all his, to be honest, if that's where the movie started, him in the being thrown into prison, and then we relive the story, that almost would have been a perfect start to the movie, starting from that scene.
Yeah.
Because why is this guy punching the wall and slamming his head against the wall? Oh, because of all the shit that happened before it.
Exactly.
That could have been the opening of the movie. That could have been.
Yeah. Again, yeah, and it still would have been a great movie.
Yeah, it really would have been. But I love this movie. It's so good. It's so good.
Anything else,
and I see like I said, I would say the way I think Martin Scorsese, and because this also De Niro was definitely involved in a lot of this too. De Niro had a lot of input in this movie, and I would say this is I don't know if you've watched the movie Champion with Kirk Douglas.
Nope.
I highly recommend it. You should watch it. This is Champion and On the Waterfront merged into one. And obviously, On the Waterfront is a huge influence, as far cinematically and thematically as well. There's that whole speech that LaMotta gives to himself, where he's his act, where he's
Right. Yeah.
reciting the.
He quotes that line in on the waterfront from Brando, where he's talking about like, oh, you're my brother. You're supposed to protect me. I could have had class. I could have been contender.
Yeah, but you also remember the scene that the pool scene where he meets Vicky for the first time.
Mm.
That is an homage to On the Waterfront, like where where Brando and fuck, what's that actress's name? Where they meet and they're talking through the fence. That
Mm.
is an homage to On the Waterfront.
Yeah,
And
I gotta
so
watch.
like
Yeah, crazy. I know. I haven't seen On the Waterfront either.
what? You haven't seen On the Water? Get out of here. You
I
haven't seen On
haven't.
the Waterfront?
I have
Do
not.
do yourself a favor. Watch it tonight. It's so good. It's on HBO. You can watch it.
Okay, I would, but I have things to do in the morning, so I have to forgo. But I will, I will put in the queue. I will put in the queue.
Dude, that's your homework, man. You gotta. That is a fucking great movie.
Okay, relax.
That's probably Brando's best film.
Okay.
Oh man, that's such a good film. But yeah,
Anything else, Al?
no, I have nothing else to add to the movie. It's just it's one of those things like yeah, could we talk about this movie scene by scene? But it's like what you're saying, like this is a movie that like you've seen the movie without seeing the movie. You've seen all the parodies, you've seen all the homages to it. We don't need to talk about it scene by scene. But I think just like what the director, what the actors went through, what the process, that is more important. And not only did the actors, they were in the moment, they were feeling the performance, they felt like the actual emotions. Hell, even like there's De Niro gained 80 pounds throughout this film to play because he's like they're like, no, we can make a good, like, we'll do prosthetics, we'll have a good
Do the
fat
fat
suit.
suit. Yeah.
He's like, no, I need to feel like what Jake LaMotta felt. I need to feel like the weight struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
So
need the fat sweats.
yeah, and those are real fat sweats. Like they actually were really concerned about his health because he was wheezing by the end of the movie.
Mm.
You have the point like where after like the scene like where Jake and Joey have that epic, like he like beats the shit out of his brother. They actually like um before that scene, like with the reconnection, they actually because Pesci and De Niro were very good friends. They were close friends. They talked all the time. They hung out all the time. But they ended up taking it was like a 2 month break. They didn't talk to they didn't have phone calls, they didn't write letters, they didn't talk to each other. And it was because they wanted to create this
Yeah.
genuine
The
awkward
tension.
moment. Yeah, and you feel it. And like he said, like and even Joe Pesci said this, like it was weird. Like it just felt like you felt hurt because your best friend is not talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you didn't know how to react like when you reconnected. And De Niro looked so different from like the last time that he talked to him,
Mm-hmm.
because he's all fat.
Right.
And so it's like this really weird moment, like where you finally reconnect, and it's like you're hurt, but you want them back, and you feel for them, but you're hurt at the same time, and you don't know how to interact.
Right.
And that genuine moment comes through in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, I'm just like I love how this movie was cast. It was cast with I can't think of who could be cast differently in this movie. I can't think of who could direct it differently. This is one of those movies. This to me is a perfect movie. This is it. It's so good.
All right, let's give our ratings and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, this is your choice. What do you give it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna give this the same rating, but yeah, this is a 5, dude. This is.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. It's a
I mean,
5
this
star.
is like, I mean, just like, um, you know, what De Niro went through to be in like fighting shape. There's like no, there's not 1 ounce of unnecessary fat, on this movie.
Yeah, like literally, he got into fighting shape. He trained he did boxing training like for like a year, couple years actually.
Right. Yeah. But
The
so yeah, it's
the
like, yeah,
fight is
there's no wasted scenes. There's no like there's no scenes that go on for too long. It's just perfect. So yeah,
and he
five
said
five five for me.
and this is one of those. This is actually a De Niro led film. Like Scorsese was very hesitant and like kind of very concerned, and because of all the training that De Niro went through, there was a point like where Scorsese he was worried about his friend Martin Scorsese. He's like, I'm killing myself in the ring here. I'm doing everything I can. Are you as committed as I am? He called them out. One on one. He didn't call him out in front of everybody. It's like he called them out one on one. It's like, are you as committed as I am to this film? You said you're here, but are you as committed as me? And that turned Scorsese around. And
All right. Okay, it was just a metaphor, dude. Okay.
no, I'm
I know,
saying,
I know, I know. Yeah, but yeah, it was just a
but
metaphor. It's this
that's
movie
why
was like this movie was perfect. This movie was perfect.
that's
So
why
five,
I'm like
yeah,
I'm
five.
so that's why I like this movie. This is peak De Niro. This is Joe Pesci at his finest. I think this is Scorsese at one of his finest moments. Um, and I think this movie kind of like I think this movie revitalized Martin Scorsese's career because he had a couple of flops that nobody really liked. Even though they're good films, they're just not the people didn't enjoy them in the theaters. They weren't successes, and it hurt Scorsese, personally. And this film brought him back.
All
And
right.
yeah, like I said, there's not a wasted scene. There's not a wasted character. There's not a wasted moment in this film.
So your rating is.
5 stars.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want people to know how amazing this film is.
Yeah, if they
Again,
didn't realize it from the very beginning of the review, then they'll never understand. But
it is
all
so
right.
good.
All right, there you have it, folks. That's our review for Raging Bull. Both Robert and I gave this a 5. Definitely a movie you should watch for all of the reasons that we listed on this review. So do yourself a favor and punch it up on HBO Max, Netflix, wherever you can get it. Get the physical copy even. Just
If you can
watch
get the
this
physical
movie.
copy, that's the best way. It's also on Criterion right now for the month. So
All right, well, there you go. Okay. And that'll bring us to the end of the stream for tonight. I hope you had a good time. I know Robert had a good time.
I always have a great time here and talking about like news stories, cultural topics, movies. I love it.
All right, don't forget to check out the library of other content that we have. The Circle of Jerks main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming show, Up by Uptown. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts, Twitter at Letterboxd at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we thank you for joining us. Come back next week and we'll do it all over again. Have a good night.